WWT presents Partner Spotlight.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Partner Spotlight brought to you by WWT Presents. My name is Neil Anderson. I lead up our cloud infrastructure and AI practice here at Worldwide. For decades, Cisco networking and compute have been trusted and known by among the world's largest organizations. They really set the standard for data centers globally. If you've been paying attention to the headlines over the last few months, you're probably as excited as we are about Cisco's efforts to bring that level of innovation, capability, and trust to AI. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, Cisco's infrastructure for AI. So I'm thrilled to welcome my good friend, Jeremy Foster, Senior Vice President and General Manager for Cisco's compute business. Was that right, Jeremy?
That is right. And we are in the podcast room and we're recording a video. So I feel like we're already breaking the rules, which I love.
That's awesome. Jeremy is obviously a member of Cisco's senior leadership team in engineering. And for years, Jeremy has been a trusted advisor of ours, and I hope us of his as well. And he's responsible for a lot of things. Really, you're responsible for running a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure business, Jeremy. That's got to be challenging, especially as we move into AI. That's got to be super challenging. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So about that, Jeremy, I wanted to ask you, the AI landscape, it's moving so quickly and so rapidly. What are you thinking that the challenges are in that market for our customers, and what do you see Cisco's AI strategy doing to help our customers?
Yeah, if I step back and put myself in the seat of a customer, I mean, there's really three things you have to look at when you look at AI in terms of how you're going to use this equipment and what outcomes you're going to deliver. And you're either going to be building models, you're going to be optimizing models, or you're going to be running models. And if you're building models at big scale, like obviously networks are extremely important to that. GPUs are extremely important to that. And that's where we see a lot of that money being spent in the market today, and a lot of really big projects that we all read about when we get up in the morning and we're looking at our phone, right? Is big, large scale data center infrastructure going out the door, basically taking thousands of GPUs and trying to build this one massive GPU to deliver an outcome for one big customer or for multiple customers. And then when you start getting into the enterprise and you say, well, like, what does the enterprise need? I think those needs are a lot different. And we're just starting to see enterprise customers define what their use cases are going to be and start deploying those initial sort of runs, if you will, as we see at picking up that AI. And whether that's in looking at things like they want to deliver better outcomes for customer service, start delivering retrieval augmented generation use cases. Those are the things that we are getting a lot of requests for, is to help them optimize their data, get things moving in the right direction to deliver AI, and ultimately building the infrastructure that helps them from a full stack across network, compute, and storage. Because when you look at the enterprise, that's what they want. They want that end-to-end solution, and that's where we're going to deliver.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point there, Jeremy. Our customers are really trying to figure this out. When you think about the infrastructure to run AI, it's not simple, right? It reminds me. But by the way, though, it does remind me of back in the FlexPod days and the vBlock days, right, where we were trying to package up the infrastructure, make it easier for customers to consume. And in that regard, I wanted to ask you about your partnership with NVIDIA, which seems to be deepening. What's that like, and what are you trying to do together with things like Cisco Hyperfabric and trying to make it easier for customers?
I mean, Cisco Hyperfabric is a great example of that partnership, right? We're actually doing engineering work across the two different engineering organizations to simplify the outcome for enterprise customers, right? And when you take a look at Hyperfabric itself, it's all about being able to understand what a customer wants to define, meaning and change that entire experience for deploying AI. So it's the end-to-end pieces, not just networking and the compute that we'll be bringing, but the security and the storage, putting it all into one experience. And I say experience because we're going to build it into the Hyperfabric cloud controller, which is not just a cloud controller, but you log in, you tell it what you want to build. You can actually define what that bill of materials will be, so the customer can walk into you and say, hey, Neil, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what it looks like. Let's have a discussion about that. And then you can come back, order what you need, deploy it, register it into the cloud, and then operate it over those next 5 years, which is a lot easier experience than, hey, I got to figure out how to cable this. I've got to figure out how to get it set up. I got to figure out how to optimize it. I want to understand where the traffic is working and not working well on this Ethernet network that I've deployed. And instead of having to deploy multiple networks, with Hyperfabric, you just deploy one Ethernet-based network for the front end and the back end of that solution. And so there's a lot of engineering work that has to go into that. And I think that's a testament to the actual things that we're doing with NVIDIA, as opposed to just sort of taking their off-the-shelf reference designs and saying, here you go.
I think that's amazing. And, one of the things I'm super excited about Cisco really jumping in with NVIDIA is our customers every day. I hear them. Yes, AI is brand new. It's complicated. But as much as I can keep those technologies familiar so that my teams can support them, like Ethernet, like UCS, that's an accelerant in itself to customers. So I'm curious what you think about, we've obviously at Worldwide, we've been customers with Cisco for decades. And it's a tremendous partnership. We advise each other. How do you see WWT amplifying and accelerating that partnership between you and NVIDIA?
I mean, when you look at what a customer struggles with there, it's that consultative approach that you all take with customers. It's customers saying, hey, just like at the beginning of cloud, and we've talked about this many times with the water cooler, right? It's like almost feels to some extent the front end is happening all over again. AI is way different than cloud in a lot of ways, but it's the questions of how do I get my data pipeline right so that I can feed this big AI machine when it actually is sitting on my floor, right? And how do I think about that process? And how do I look at this new software stack that has other things I'm not always used to operating and other frameworks that I haven't been running in my data center for a long time, and bringing all those things to bear and working with somebody like Worldwide and Cisco who can help standardize, if you will, a template that can then help coach customers through the process to deliver whatever that need happens to be, is how I think we can accelerate things together. And it's been a fantastic partnership for many, many years, and I think taking it into AI is actually really, really exciting. And to your point, you also help us, right? You advise us. We listen to you all about what we need to be doing and what you're seeing across these thousands of customers, and it's a great relationship at an engineering level with us as well.
Yeah, we see customers that are really trying to weigh this every day, Jeremy, around like, what infrastructure do I need to support these AI initiatives that I want to do? And it isn't one size fits all, to your point earlier about, am I building a net new model, or am I trying to add my data to a model, or am I just trying to do inferencing? So are there any particular workloads that you're kind of targeting as, Cisco Hyperfabric, these are the ones that I really want to solve, and it's a sweet spot for Cisco and NVIDIA together?
Yeah. Well, at a super high level, we want Hyperfabric to be incredibly agile. So it's not just about saying we're going to solve this one use case or that one use case. We want to be able to give somebody a solution that can support multiple use cases. And it could start off with our first iterations that will be delivered here in the second half of the calendar year. And that will include a server that has 8 GPUs, right? So that you would say is, wow, that's a pretty big, potentially a pretty big, maybe even training type use case. Yes, we could support that. But we can start as low as one server with the fabric, all cloud managed, and that's about as simple as it gets. So it's about starting small and growing big. And what we'll do is we'll introduce different types of servers over time that will give you additional flexibility if you want certain things like PCI-based GPUs that may not have as much performance, but may also not have as much cost. And
right.
Maybe those will also let you target just an inferencing use case, for example. And that's what we're going to see, and it's going to be fun to kind of watch, is we're at the front end of this thing as it goes into the enterprise, and people are going to buy this initial round of things, deploy, learn, and then they're going to optimize. And when they go to optimize, that's when you're going to say, I know exactly what my needs are. I know what I need to drive, mathematically this outcome for the business. And now I'm going to go get this specific kind of recipe, if you will, about this type of server with that type of network and optic and blah, blah, blah. And we'll see them optimize everything just like we did with virtualization, through that whole curve.
So I love the idea of something you said there, Jeremy, around basically providing building blocks where I could get started with an appliance kind of model that relatively small, but then I can grow that with the same architecture, same blueprint, same management plane as I need to, as I add more use cases or as I scale out my production workloads. I think that's a key thing that you guys are bringing to the table that I can tell you firsthand. Our customers are looking for that. They're concerned about, okay, if I bought X, is that going to work for me tomorrow? As the business units are coming up with more and more use cases for me to do. What I love is that you providing that scale factor, whether it's small t-shirt size all the way up to, hey, I really need to scale this out. It's relatively the same architecture and management plane is what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very cool. So, this is such a fast moving space, Jeremy. I'm wondering, as you were developing Cisco Hyperfabric with, your counterparts in engineering, what kind of things did you learn or your insights about things that you needed to take back and rethink or think about the future for customers? I'm just curious, what kind of learnings did you guys have to go through?
Neil, it's a great question. We've had a lot of learnings as we've gone through this initial feedback from the beta and alpha rounds of testing with customers. I think the operational simplicity of pulling this together into a stack, allowing customers to manage it, again, through that whole, not only just operating on a day two perspective, but even before they configure, right? Getting online, building it out virtually, sort of logically, right? And then delivering a product and instantiating that product and then operating that product, right? We've added a tremendous amount of things, I would say, to the customer side of that experience, which has gotten really positive feedback. But where is this on this screen, and how do I figure that? Like those types of little things we've certainly learned. But overall, now we're in that day two side of things, and people want more and more operational capabilities. To your point earlier around making it easy and simple to run, and that's exactly what we're working on delivering.
So, Jeremy, a follow-up question there. How is your server roadmap developing to respond to the partnership with NVIDIA and respond to the market that you're seeing developing out there?
Now, we've always had the latest and greatest, GPU support inside of UCS for whatever that NVIDIA or AMD GPU happens to be out there. But those use cases have always been focused on inferencing, fine-tuning, enterprise-type use cases. We haven't had the big HGPU-type boxes. We're delivering that as part of Hyperfabric, so you'll see that be the first entrance of what will be several very focused GPU-enabled type hardware that comes to market over the next year and a half. So it's not only going to include that, we'll eventually include liquid cooling. So the roadmap has dramatically increased from where it was, and we're going to absolutely bring the AI game, if you will, over the next generation of UCS compute, and we're looking forward to that. And it's all part of a building block, to your earlier point, just to fit into these solutions like Hyperfabric, because just like worldwide, Cisco's not just like, hey, here's a box. That's not really our approach. Our approach is going to be, we're building all the best building blocks we possibly can so we can put them in a solution to make it as easily consumable for the enterprise as possible, so that our customers can really focus on like getting stuff done instead of focusing on IT problems that don't help advance their business.
Wow, I can see you guys are moving at speed almost as fast as this market is, Jeremy. So that's awesome to see Cisco moving at just tremendous speed to respond to what our customers are looking for, which is solutions ultimately.
That's fun.
That's very cool. And I think that's only going to accelerate things and help our customers to scale, our joint customers. How do you see that developing over the next 12 to 18 months? I mean, this space is moving so fast. I'm almost asking you to pull a genie out of a bottle there and get your crystal ball going. But what do you see likely to happen over the next 12 to 18 months in this market space and what you're doing with customers?
Well, from a Hyperfabric perspective, we're obviously really focused on let's get these initial use cases out the door, Q2 25, and then we want to make sure that we're getting those experiences into the ATC or the Advanced Technology Center here at Worldwide, so you can share that experience with customers and getting through, I think, some of the tactical, if you will, things that you need to do when you're bringing a new product into a space like this. And then we'll see how that develops over time. We have a roadmap, like I was mentioning earlier, around bringing additional servers, capabilities. Obviously, it's going to be 800 gig based architecture out of the gates, so that'll be nice to kind of bring all those different products together across networking, optics, compute for a customer. And then overall, I think in the space, if you take a step back from it, to your question, like what we're going to see is these enterprise customers maturing in how they deliver these use cases, deploy these use cases, and we'll see a lot of opportunities to lean in and help them. And I think it'll be fun to watch over the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah, the space changes daily, and every day I hear our customers kind of struggling to keep up with it. And what I try to reassure them a little bit is, hey, we've got teams of people at Worldwide that are studying this every day and trying to keep up with what's going on so that we can make the best recommendations to our customers, because often they can't follow as much as that's happening. And so that's one of the values I think that we bring to you and NVIDIA as a partner is we're on top of that. We understand you guys are just very open and share your plans with us, what we're doing. And that really helps our ability to guide customers the right direction where they're trying to go. So one topic that we see over and over, Jeremy, coming up is around the idea of, customers want to build out infrastructure in their data center, very similar to what they did for traditional workloads and all those technologies that were very familiar to them and successful over the past few years. But they're challenged a little bit in the AI space because those GPUs are very power hungry and they're hard to cool. I mean, it is just a logistical problem for a lot of our customers, and their data centers are not quite ready for that. I'm curious what you're thinking about that space in terms of not per sustainability per se, but the power and cooling, making it accessible so that they can run these workloads in their data center if they want to. Anything that you're thinking there on that kind of issue?
Yeah, I tell you, this is 9 out of 10 times you have a conversation about AI with a customer today, it seems like this is going to come up in the first 2 questions. And it's kind of funny to me because I used to build data centers 100 years ago, back when the earth cooled in my career. And one of the things was like, man, this virtualization thing's taking off. It looks pretty cool. And battery technology hasn't changed in 50 years. So probably should jump on the new thing as opposed to sit around here and look at this. And now it's come completely full circle where we're solving these problems with hardware. And that hardware happens to use 450 watts, 700 watts, north of a kilowatt per GPU eventually here soon. And your data centers just aren't built to handle that in the average enterprise, and
right.
nowhere near that. So, the first step in that is, how do I modernize my overall data center? Which, when you're running infrastructure that's 4 and 5 years old or 3 and 4 years old, you can take a big chunk out of that data center, which recuperates not only physical space, but a lot of power, a lot of cooling capacity, and can allow you to move in some of these newer technologies in a thoughtful way, which is what a lot of enterprises are looking at doing right now. And then the second piece is just, where are you going to do these as they scale out? I mean, it's can I even get more power to that facility is a question that a lot of customers have, that I know you've got to help coach customers through, and then find the right location to help them host these things as they need 50 of them instead of 4 or 5 of them a few years from now. But it's fascinating. It's actually changing the landscape of the planet in terms of where people are building data centers, how we're getting power, and
right.
That part of it is one of my favorite things to probably read about actually on a day-to-day basis. So I was completely wrong about batteries and data centers not changing much, because I have a feeling they're going to change a lot, and that really ties back into liquid cooling and the rapid adoption of these types of things that have existed for a long time, but we'd never had a need for them because the ROI wasn't really there to build them. Now you have to have it, right, to be able to really deploy these at scale in an efficient manner. And it's crazy to see how fast that's actually changed.
Yeah, and I tell you, I'm with you there. We've had a data center facilities consulting team for quite a while, but it's been a very specialized kind of conversation that those guys will get involved, once or twice, a month maybe. What customers that really needed that kind of help. Now they are in every single executive briefing that we're having, because it is one of the top issues. So that team is getting stretched. But we are actively working with customers on things like in-rack, self-contained liquid cooling to help with that problem. The power problem is challenging as well, and when we can consult on that, we can help customers with that. If you are thinking about running this in your data center, which most of our customers are, we can certainly consult with you and work with you on your data center readiness and planning on that.
Yeah, and I think it's going to drive a lot of technology improvements there, right? If I look at what we are building internally, sustainability is not only top of mind for our customers and saying like, hey, I've got these requirements from the top of my organization that say I need to be doing my environmental and sustainability goals for the organization. So how do I report out on it? How do I actually deliver against those goals. And that's the stuff that we're going to build into our Intersight dashboard or into Hyperfabric, right? And make that type of information easy for people to have at their fingertips, because they're not getting additional resources to go after it. So that's one way it's kind of pushing technology forward. And then the other way is you're going to see things like fault managed power, and how do we deliver a lot of power over, like, those things have been around for a while, but like they're not front and center. I think you'll see power and cooling technologies just kind of like advance rapidly as well to try and close the gap here a little bit, if you will, from where we are today versus what the requirements are going to be around the GPU. So it's a super exciting space.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've noticed about that space is it seems like a little bit of lack of standardization across different solutions is kind of holding it back a little bit. Nobody wants to kind of get locked into one proprietary solution. And so hopefully that becomes standardized very soon. And I think you're just going to see that really, really accelerate. So Jeremy, we met at Cisco Live a couple months ago, and I know that sitting in on the keynotes and all the conversations we were having in Whisper Suites, et cetera, were all about AI. I'm wondering, you've had a couple months to digest everything that you learned talking with customers, talking with partners. What are some of the takeaways for you that you've learned from customers and those industry leaders about how will they, what do they need to think about to succeed with AI in the future?
Yeah, I think the one piece is it really all does start with the data in these enterprise organizations and that gravity, kind of where are you going to deploy, how are you going to deploy? A lot of those things are predicated by that. The second piece is understand and identify the use cases. I think there's a lot of folks who it feels like for the right reasons, supply chain related reasons, hey, I can't get it for 10 months, so I'm going to buy it and I'm going to figure it out later. Again, maybe not optimal, but at the end of the day, it's about defining those, being clear about what you want to get done, and then work on getting all the pieces together to go do it. And that's, again, where I think you'll see a lot of people optimize over time. It won't be that way forever. And then really it's about, to your point, keeping it simple. The tools, the amount of tools and number of open source pieces of software that can be involved in an end-to-end stack for something like AI is somewhat daunting, right? And there's new tools that are popping up every day. So how do I pick technologies that are going to snap into my tool chain, which is a big piece of what we're trying to build around with Hyperfabric, right? Make it easy to be able to automate what you need, snap in with the software pieces that you would want, whether that's NVIDIA's AI enterprise software or NVAIE, or whether that's a bespoke stack that you want to build with your organization. Those are three top of mind considerations. I think the last one we just hit on sustainability, right? Like, how do you pick hardware that is as efficient as possible, which is, again, design goals for things like us before it's on the whiteboard. Like, whereas with X series, right, we said we're going to build the most sustainable server on the planet, and we actually did. So
yeah, I think you've hit on it. And we hear the very similar things, Jeremy. Where's my data going to be? What use cases am I going to do? How am I going to scale this in production at the point where I can actually support it, and my IT staff's not going to get overwhelmed with new technology or unfamiliar technology, and then the power and cooling issues. We hear that all day long, and we actually have services that we could help customers through those barriers. And I think that's why the partnership is so great. You guys provide fantastic technology and innovation. We can help customers to be able to adopt that and figure out what use cases they want to run. What's it going to take to run that? And that's why I think the partnership is just so great. So I have to leave it there. Jeremy, thank you for coming today. I really appreciate your time and willing to sit down with us today. We'll leave it here today. If you want to find out more about our technologies, like the Proving Ground that we've talked about a little bit, visit WWT.com. And thank you for joining us for another episode of WWT Presents.